NRHEG invited a muralist to come in and do a mural on our Lower Commons wall.
My name is Greg Preslicka, so I'm the muralist, and I'm going to be painting on this wall up here. So right now I've started by putting up paint marks that are kind of my grid that I'm going to use to help me get the drawing up. And so the drawing looks like this. So it's got the 4 communities in the corner and the school in the center. So, and you can see there's a grid over here. So my next step is going to start drawing up all this drawing onto the wall. And I'll probably start in pieces since it's very sectional. I'll start with the center, and then as I get that more done, I'll go to each of the towns. And so I'll draw it up first, and then I'll start painting it in. This is my rough layout that was done first. It doesn't have as much detail, but it kind of shows what it's going to look like. And then I did a drawing of it that I used to help me get it up on the wall, so it has a lot more detail. See that? And so there's a grid on there. You can see in the center that most of the blue dots are gone because I've taken them off as I'm painting, but I use that. So those dots are kind of where the lines cross. So it's my grid on the wall. So when I start painting in these areas here, I'll be looking at these grid lines to get the towns in the right spot and everything. So I draw them out. And this one, many times what I usually do is draw the whole thing and then I start coloring it. But this one, because it's so many different sections, I'm kind of doing it piece by piece. So I'll do the center and then I'll do the towns each individually after that. So you can see I've kind of had, here's where it's been drawn in. And now I'm adding in the main shapes. I got a bit of the clouds up there, but I'm not quite done there. I wanted to kind of get some.
Do you want to explain the different values of brown you used?
All right, well actually, when I paint, what I think is I start with kind of the base color. That's kind of where I am in the light. So I'm always thinking of lights and shadows and where the light's coming from. So the light's kind of coming from this direction. So I want the front of the building mostly lit up and the side darker. So I'm picking darker colors here, and usually when I'm doing those colors I'm adding a little blue because blue is kind of in shadow colors. So that's what I'm thinking. So like with the trees now, with the green, I'm adding a little bit of light, kind of the highlight side of the trees. And so I stay real, as you can see, I've still got big brushes and I'm staying big detail, big stuff, not a lot of detail yet. I'm just trying to get the overall feel so that it starts to have some depth to it.
So how did you create that center brown?
How did I create this?
Over there, going down.
So this one?
The next one over. Right there. How did you create that?
Well, so basically I worked kind of with the same colors as I used here, but added a little bit more red and a little bit more blue to get it a little bit deeper. What's that? It lasts the sun that, and it's a heavy duty paint, so it should last pretty good. It's not like it's similar to artists like acrylic paint, but just made for, so it's made for walls and that. So like whatever's painted here is the same kind of paint. So it's used to having kids. You shouldn't touch it because oils and dirt kind of will affect it, but it's made to last in a situation.
So it's a latex outdoor?
Yes, it's an outdoor paint, yes.
You made how much?
What's that?
Or how do you make your brown?
How do I make my brown?
Yeah.
So I've got a red and an orange, and then I put in a little bit of this dark blue to make the brown, and actually a little bit of white too to lighten it up. So I mix it down here on my palette. So I have a brown in there, but I usually don't. I like to mix my colors, because then I can get them the way I want. And I don't just rely on the color that I have. This is what the mural is going to look like. We start to take some shape. So this is my first layout I did. So it's kind of rough. There's not as much detail on here, but it's my guide for colors and placement, and it's a good guide for the kind of what the mural is going to look like when it's done. And then I did this drawing, which has a lot more of the detail. So all the buildings in the right place and the right scale and everything. And so this is what I'm using now to get the mural up on the wall. And so you can see there's a grid on here. So there's like blue lines on here. You see those? So those blue lines, so you can see the blue tape marks up there? So those tape marks are where the lines cross. So that's kind of my grid on the wall. In the center here, I've been taking it off as I've been going. But this is what I use to help get everything the right way. I only see a little bit of it at a time. And so I'm using these tape marks and these grid marks as a guide to make sure I get everything in the right spot. Because I could be working over here and it looks pretty good, and then I go over there and that looks pretty good. But if I step back, you know, one's too big in comparison to the other, and the building angle is kind of off. But these grid lines help me. And so like this curve here, that curve there, curves are always hard. Big, long curves are hard to do. So what I do is I look at where the curve kind of crosses the grid marks, and I put little dots on the wall. So before I drew that, I had little dot marks on the wall, and then I kind of connect the dots, and then just smooth that line out. So it helps me get everything in the right spot, so I don't have to draw it and adjust it a lot. Especially for a curve like that, it's hard to adjust. So then, you know, so I get it drawn up. And for usually when I do them, I kind of draw the whole thing up at one time. But this one, because it's kind of in pieces, so the town's in the corners, and the school in the center, I'm connections after that. So instead of drawing it all up, just that way it can be seen each day. You guys can see me drawing. It's hard to draw now. Where all these go in. Then I start filling in colors. That's kind of what I'm doing now. So I had worked on the clouds. At lunch, you might have seen me working on that, and that's still not quite done. And actually, I'm about to go up there and kind of look at that, because I wanted to get some of the colors and the values down here so that I could decide if I need to lighten up this guy. And I think I'm going to lighten up some of those blues and get some more whites in that, so that the school will pop a little bit more, and get the panther to pop a little bit too. But I want to get a little more definition here. So I think about that as I'm painting and thinking, how do I separate things and get it read better, and where the light and stuff is. So that's where I am now. And actually now I'm going to probably go up to the clouds. Yes. Well, I'm hoping to be done Thursday. If not, I'll be back on next Tuesday when you guys are back here. 4 to 5 days. Well, I started meeting probably at 9 o'clock. And so I've kind of drawn the center up. I haven't drawn the outsides. I'll do those as I go. But you can see there's a grid. It goes back there, you can't, but there's a blue grid on my drawing. And so you see blue dots or blue pieces of tape on the wall? Yeah. So I made my grid on the wall by just putting dots where the lines cross. So I use that as my grid to help me get everything in the right spot. Because when I'm painting up here, I don't see a lot of it at a time. So it might look pretty good here, and then I might go over here and paint, and that looks pretty good, but then I step back and they don't look the right, you know, this one, maybe that one's too big, or this one's too small, or slightly at a wrong angle. So if I look at how things fall in the grid, like, so when I did these curves, which curves are hard to do. I watched where the curves kind of followed on the grid, put little marks on the grid, and then kind of connected my lines as I drew it so I would get as smooth as I could.